Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'm going to start off by opening up some mail, a birthday gift from Tom from the YouTube channel Grow and Clip Bonsai for Seniors. Thanks very much, Tom.
Yesterday we had a beautiful sunny day, cool temperatures, and today it is going to rain once again. Okay, so here is the gift. Let's get it out. Let's see what's inside the box. And it looks like it's a pot. Wow. Okay, let's check out this pot here. Oh, it's a nice pot. I like it. It's from Dahlia, DahliaNewYork.com. Thank you for your purchase. Well, there we go. So I get some drainage screens in the bottom here. And there's the pot. It has a fancy design on it. Here is a look at the pot. So there's a design. There is mountains, a little house, some weeping willows. Very, very nice. There's a maker's stamp in the bottom. Yeah, a nice, beautiful shaped pot. Yeah, I like that. That's very nice. Thank you very much, Tom.
I was about to recycle the box and I found there's an under tray for that pot in the bottom of the box, so good thing I didn't throw it out. Yesterday I had some guests in the bonsai zone and they also brought me a present, so I'll show you what they gave me.
Here is a look at the gift. So it's kind of a hybrid pot. It's in between a pot and a slab. So it has a recessed section in the middle that's more like a regular, landscape pot. And the edges are like a slab, so you can plant a forest on it and you can get quite a thin layer of soil and still have enough to keep the trees happy. So it'll be quite fun planting this, I think.
Thank you very much for the new pot. It'll be a lot of fun planting a forest on top of it.
Rain is due this afternoon, so I'm going to head indoors into the greenhouse to work today. And here's what I'll be working on. I got my larch forest all pruned up and cleaned up, and now it's time for the Avatar Grove to get the same treatment, getting it pruned up and cleaned up and looking good.
I've got the forest in the greenhouse here, and I'm just stepping back having a look at it. One thing I've noticed is the ground. It kind of comes up here. It's quite straight across at the top and then it drops off. I think I want more of a asymmetrical type hill that kind of echoes the canopy shape. Either that or I want the opposite, where the high point of the hill would be here, tapering down, so you have this shaped triangle, and then the top would be the opposite. The high point would be on the left hand side. So you'd have the right hand side for the ground and the left hand side for the tree. I think that would be the most interesting arrangement. It's not like that at the moment. I have the hill all planted, so I don't think I can really, reverse the triangle. I think I've just got to start tapering this side back more. As much as I can anyway. I'm looking at the overall forest. I still have a lot of trees that are, I guess, this eventually I'm hoping to look like sort of an old growth forest with the oldest tree in the middle here. So the trees surrounding it don't have to look really, really old. This kind of represents like a tree over 1,000 years old, and these will be, 200 or 300 years old. So they'll be similar in height, but they'll have the conical shape, whereas this one will have the cathedral type top on it. So different styles for the trees, representing different ages. Some of the trees aren't all that vertical. Like there's one at the back here that I notice is just, it's on a bit of an angle and it kind of bothers me a little. Most of the others are fairly good. They eventually go upright, which, most trees in a forest grow absolutely vertical. They don't lean or anything unless they're at the edge of the forest and they're reaching out for light. But generally in the interior of a forest, you know, there's bare trunks, straight trunks, and then a tuft of foliage at the top because they're all sharing the light in the canopy. So that's the look I'll try and go for, is, you know, vertical trunks, and I'm trying to get a sense of perspective in the distance. And one thing that's I've always wondered is if I need another tree up front to give some depth, to show that the main tree is kind of behind the others, that it's in the forest, not at the edge of the forest. So I'm wondering if I need another tree up front to kind of make you look into the forest, not at the edge of the forest. That's why I planted some of these ones up front here, to give a bit of depth to the planting. So yeah, I think there's some changes coming to the forest. Definitely. I have some trees that Matt gave me. I'll show you those. Over here is some Thuja trees that Matt gave me, and they're very straight and tall, and they could be pruned back to look like trees in my Avatar Grove. This one's not so straight, but this one definitely is very, very straight. So, and this one also, the main trunk of it. So yeah, I could integrate these trees into the Avatar Grove eventually, providing, you know, a bit of variety in my tree sizes. So they're not, you know, I've got my thickest tree here, and these ones are all kind of about the similar size. Not exactly, but, you know, maybe a thicker tree framing the larger one here, making you look into the planting would be better. So that's a possibility. So that will come in spring when I'm repotting this forest or rearranging this forest. All that work will be done in spring. So what I'll do in the meantime is prepare these two trees to go in the forest. So what I'll do is I'll prune them, getting them very compact, trying to get the right branch structure on them, preparing them to eventually go into the Avatar Grove. It will be interesting in the spring of 2024, playing around with the arrangement of the forest, maybe adding those new trees. It'll be very interesting and a lot of fun. I think it'll really, hopefully, improve this landscape and make it even better for the future. I'm going to begin the work on my Avatar Grove now, and the first work that I will do is shorten all the new shoots that have grown out and elongated in spring. So bringing back all that spring growth as close to the trunk as I can, trying to keep these trees compact and in basically a rounded conical form. So, you know, a conical form with sort of a rounded top on it. That's generally how cedars grow in nature. Here's a look at one of the apexes of the tree so I can prune it back. Keeping some nice healthy foliage. Prune this one back to here, like that. And this one back to here. And then I'll pinch these growing tips. That's got the apex pruned up here. Now, I could go even lower. So I could keep this as my center leader and prune this branch off. Or prune, you know, the top part off, prune it back more. But I think in this case, I'm going to take that branch right off and just keep this as my leader. I'll continue pruning away, getting all that new growth pruned back nice and short, and then we'll come back and look at the styling of the trees. One thing you might notice in my Avatar Grove
is that the bark on this oldest tree is beginning to peel away naturally. It's just starting to flake off in strips. And it reveals a very smooth bark underneath. And if you look at cedars in nature, they don't have that rough, craggly bark. They're very smooth and they have little tiny ridges in the bark. I'll show you what I mean. In here you can see the rough bark of a young cedar. It's very desirable. It makes the tree look really old. However, cedars in nature, old cedars in nature, don't have bark like this. They're smooth. So I'll show you what I mean. Here is a cedar in our backyard. And it's not that old a tree. But here's a look at the bark. So it's not rough and flaky. It's very smooth and has very small ridges in it. And on an even older cedar, it kind of gets bleached by the sun, and it's similar to this. I'll show you a really old one. Here's a couple of mature cedars here, and here's what I mean about that rounded conical shape. So it's, it's basically a conical shape, but it has a rounded top, not a pointy top. They don't get that kind of vigorous leader growing up. These trees I photographed, I think on my second video ever on the channel. I was showing kind of the growth characteristics of a cedar. So let's go in and have a look at this bark now. So here it is here. So you can see how it's, very smooth, but it's striped. And the stripes kind of follow all the contours. They go around the branches, the remains of branches. Yeah, so a very, that's a very mature look to a cedar. It's not that rough kind of flaky bark that the younger ones have. There's a look at the roots down here. There's another tree beside it over here. Let's have a look at this one. So again, you can see the smooth bark, and you can see the bulges, that run from the root, the canals that run up to the branches. Quite an old tree. This one's got quite a cool root base. Nice radial root base. You can see the bark. There's a good shot of the bark, kind of bleached by the sun. Very light gray color. There's a little branch growing out between there. That could be from a seed. Although over here, off of this old trunk, there's some new growth, some new branches coming out. Amazing. They do backbud. Here's another one. Perfect little bonsai tree there. Amazing. Here's two branches that have wrapped around each other here. Just like that one cedar I have has that effect on the back branch. It has two branches that kind of curl around each other. Yeah, so let's just step back and look at the silhouettes again. There's a look at the two trees side by side. Now, these are growing in an open field, so it's not a representative of a forest tree. But certainly shows you kind of the natural form that these Eastern White Cedars, or Thuja occidentalis, how they grow. All right, back on the bike and home I go. It is the next day now. That's all the bonsai work I got done yesterday, just a little bit. So I will continue today pruning up my avatar grove. Typically when I prune up this forest, I usually start with the main tree, pruning it up, and then I work to the other trees. This time, I'm starting with all the trees surrounding the main tree, pruning those up first. That'll kind of give me an idea of how much space I have around the main tree. It's so nice when you find some back budding on a branch and you can prune the long, vigorous branch back, making it really compact. It's so good. You really get the tree nice and compact. So this pruning is just a matter of looking at every branch and then deciding how far you can take it back to where.
you know, just pruning it up, making it compact the best you can. Sometimes you're able to make, you know, really good advances on the branch. Other times you just can only pinch the tip out. It all depends on how well the branch is growing. I'm taking a break from pruning and just cleaning up the base of the main tree. Had a lot of moss growing up it, so I'm just kind of cleaning that out. Yeah, it's getting very mature looking at the base. There was, I don't know if that was a root or a branch that's kind of rotted away there, kind of left a bit of a hollow. Same down here. I think it was maybe a root. But yeah, it's nice and flowing now. Looks very natural. And it's growing on the hill, so it has that natural kind of, the root base matches the slope of the hill now. So it's looking good. You can see some roots forming here. So there's the base kind of cleaned up on that tree. Alright, I'm back to pruning now. Take this one off here. So for here, this branch, you know, I've got some healthy growth here and here. And this is getting too long, so I'm going to hard prune it back. Like that. And this branch may struggle for a while, but usually they live. I mean, occasionally, here's a vertical branch here that died off, which you've just got to redesign your tree around the new branch structure then. And I think I can probably take that whole branch off there because it's sticking up and getting too long, and I got better branches down here. And I could even take this one back to here. Definitely. Yeah, so it's really important also to, you can see how these trees are growing into each other. They don't have their own space, so I've got to prune back a lot of these branches. Like this one is growing over top of the tree beside it, so I've got to kind of hard prune it back to some good foliage, shortening that branch. So every tree has a spot of sunlight. So you can see I don't have a lot of room between these trees. I've still got to prune the foliage back even harder. And some forests, you know, I wouldn't say it's cheating, but they have, you know, one branch from a tree will come out here, another branch will come out here, and the overall effect is a forest, but it's kind of, each tree doesn't have its own form. You know, there's one or two branches that contribute to the overall shape of the forest. But if you took that tree out by itself, it would look very one-sided. It would have maybe, you know, 3 branches on the tree that are developed, and the rest of the tree would be bare. So I'm trying in my forest to, you know, keep the tree slender, just like in a real forest where each tree has its own spot of sunlight. I'm not, you know, growing 1 or 2 branches off each tree that contribute to the overall look of the forest. I want each tree to be able to stand on their own if they can. And forest trees can be quite sparse. You know, because they only have a little spot of sunlight, you know, all the growth is usually at the top of a tree in a forest, and they're quite bare underneath. And, you know, I may find that I kill off some of these lower branches eventually. I think I'm going to take this one back. And this one too. There's another one beside it I can take back. Taking the tip off that one, and another one here. Like that. There's a lot of growth in there. That lets a lot of light down to the moss here. Now, speaking of the moss, it's getting a little dry. I better water this planting. The trees outside got rain yesterday, but this one was in the greenhouse, so it missed out on the rain. It is also easier to water the forest once you clean them up. There's not all that foliage hanging everywhere. You can kind of get the watering can into the different areas of the forest and water it really, really well. Take that out. And here's the big shoot here. Take that right off too, look at that. Yeah, some good vigorous growth on these trees. I've got some cool fungi growing in here. Some little mushrooms right here. On this tree here, you can see from the front, this is my leader, my tree leader. And then I've got a really thick branch in here. So I've got a lot of thinner ones surrounding it, so I'm going to take out that thick one. Kind of a major structural change to the tree, but it's just getting too thick to be up in the apex there. So out it comes. Okay, let's get this branch out of here. So I've got one below it that's quite nice, so it's not going to be missed on the tree. Here I go. That comes out, that thick branch. Replaced by thinner ones now. I can definitely make this branch more compact, taking it off here. This one, I don't want this growing on the inside here. It's not my leader. And this one too, I guess it's okay. I have a choice. I have like a horizontal branch and one going upwards. Let me look from the front. I think in this case I want to keep my more horizontal branch. You know, in the apex you want the branches going upwards, but I think, you know, this is my apex and I've got to make these more horizontal. This branch is getting thick here too. Prune this one back. Prune this one back a bit. Prune this one back. Here's a vigorous shoot here. I'll prune that back. This one needs to be more compact. And this one growing out here, I'm just going to take it off. I've got healthy foliage further, closer to the trunk line. From the front, this part of the trunk line is really thickened up. Let me show you that from the front view. Here's a look at that tree from the front. So you can see my apex is very thin and delicate. And over here, you can see this branch coming off to the right hand side, which has had lots of branches growing from it. And I would say it's like a third larger in diameter than the actual trunk. So it's a big, thick kind of bulbous area here. It'll have to be removed. I'll show you it from above. You can see it from above also. Here's a look from above, and you can see my apex comes off to the front here, and I've got this whole thick bulbous section in there where, you know, it's just too thick. It's got to be pruned away. So here I go. All right, I'm coming in with the pruners, and I've got to decide from the front which branches are important. I'll try and keep my thinnest ones. Okay. Well, I think I'm going to remove the ones from the back. I've got to nibble that away. Here I go. Taking, you know, a chunk of that thick part off. And then I'll try and smooth it in with the rest of the tree. So I don't have a big bulbous section. It looks more natural. Okay, I think that's quite good. I'll show you what I did from above. Here's a look from above. So you can see I nibbled away half of that bulbous section, so I have two branches coming off still from that area, but the thickness of it is gone. So I think it blends in quite nicely with the rest of the tree. I'll continue working away at the forest, pruning it up. I'm sure there'll be lots of hard decisions to make as I make my way through all the trees. I mentioned earlier that the landscape's looking very flat at the top, and I think it tapered more. Most of this is just fluffy moss on here. There is a rock in here that I can hear that you can't see at all. So I'm going to start pruning away the moss. just to see what's going on with this landscape. I think that moss has just kept growing over the years and gotten really, really thick. All right, I think I'm going to be doing more landscape work, but I think I've got it pruned back at least a little bit for now so I can see what's going on with the rocks and that. So I'll keep working away on the trees now. Back to tree work. So you can see I've done a lot of major cutting. I took a huge branch off here. Big work in the apex, trying to get them thinned down. I was getting a lot of multiple shoots coming up from one spot, and it was starting to thicken up. So a lot of these trees had some pretty hard pruning in the apex. And it's just something you've got to do, otherwise they thicken up. So I think I'll work on this tree next. See, there's a big thick branch taking over here. Yeah, so this tree, the apex is here, and I've got a really vigorous branch here. Coming off of that branch, I've got a vertical aspect to it, or a branch coming up, and then one off to the side. And I'm wondering, I don't think I need any of those. I think I'm going to take that whole branch off. So, a big change for this tree. And again, it's just going to make that too thick. So that whole structure comes off there. I'll prune it back so it's nice and flush. There, that looks good. Yeah, so that really brought that tree back. And these trees, as I said, they're supposed to be forest trees. They're not supposed to have big, full dome canopies on them. They're a little tough of foliage at the top where they get the light, and that is about it. Most forest trees, you can see from that forest I was just in the other day when on my way to the community gardens, there are no branches until you get to the very, very top of the tree. Now this one off to the side, I think it's too thick too, and it kind of, I'll try pruning it back. Maybe it's okay. I think that maybe just this back part has to come off like that, and then I can prune this back, and I think it'll look fine. That looks better anyway. It may have to come off in the future. I don't think it's hurting being there now. Do I get rid of it now? I think so. I think I get rid of it now. I don't want a lot of foliage. I want to be able to see the trees at the back. So the front trees should be fairly sparse. Otherwise it blocks your view of the back trees. And I don't want it, unnatural looking. I want to, sorry, just trying to prune this back. Yeah, that was getting pretty thick. And yeah, I want to have some foliage on the trees in the front, so you have to kind of move your head to see the back trees. I don't want everything obvious. I want it to look natural. Okay, so big changes for that tree, and I'm still not done with it yet. Well, that's getting the top of that tree a lot more sparse. I'll take this one out. I wonder, I don't think I need this one. It's pretty straight. That one's a little long. I'll take this part of it off. Maybe I'll take that right out. Like that. Yeah, so that's got it very sparse. The foliage up top, it's got a nice taper. Certainly allowing a lot more light down to the moss now. It's unbelievable how much it's changed. There's just so much more light getting down to the forest floor. Here's a look at the forest, so you can see this side is really full and green. This side is looking quite sparse. So somewhere in between there is ideal. So I pruned this side back. I'll be pruning the whole forest, but this kind of density of branching looks too thin. But once it starts growing again, it fills in. And I think by fall it should look quite nice. It's possible I could put this in the Toronto show, this forest, if it's looking good. So yeah, I think this, you know, kind of hard pruning now, the tree will grow over the summer and it should fill in quite nicely. And by fall it should look just perfect, I hope. So that's my goal, is to kind of get it show ready for the fall, Toronto's fall show. I think I'm overdue for having lunch, so I'm going to head in and get a bite to eat. So here's my progress so far. I've done some more cleanup of the landscape, exposing another rock there that I didn't know was there. Yeah, I've started pruning this side of the forest, so it's starting to look a little sparser. And yeah, then I have to work my way around the back, which is really grown in. So it should be fun. I enjoy this kind of pruning work. There's lots of decisions to make though. So yeah, it's coming along, the forest. I think, I don't know, I may not get it done today. I'll keep working away at it and just see how far I get. I had lunch, so now I'm back at the forest. This tree here, even though it's a skinny little tree, it's growing almost the height of the main tree here. So I need to prune it back a bit. So I'm trying to find a good leader. I guess this would be a good one. I could reduce the height there, and I will. Like that. I'll prune off this vigorous part here. And I'll prune the branches back, making them more compact. Yeah, that one really rocketed up. It's getting close to the end of the day. The light's starting to go. So I don't know. I guess I'm about half done. Maybe a little more than half. I still have to do all the trees in the back of this forest. I got some of it done today anyway. So I'll continue in part 2 of this series. I haven't touched the main tree yet, and I may be adding some deadwood to it. I eventually want to kill off part of the top of the tree. It'll be a big step, and then just have the living branches kind of growing up around the deadwood top. Yeah, that will be a big step. I'm kind of waiting. You've got to wait till the branches get a certain thickness before you turn them into deadwood, because once you strip the bark off, you don't want these little slivers sticking up in the sky. You want enough deadwood there to last over the years and be noticeable. You don't want like toothpicks sticking up in the sky to form your cathedral crown. So yeah, I'll determine if they're getting thick enough. If not, I'll just keep growing them, and then someday kill them off. So I've got, yeah, a lot of work to do on these back trees, which is, you know, quite a bit of the forest. You can see the pot ends about here, and I have all these trees growing out from the back of the pot, and it really gives the forest depth. If you come from the front, the forest, the trees go way back there, because it's such a, you know, it's got all these layers of trees, and I may even, as I said, add some to the front. So you're kind of looking into the forest. Yeah, that's coming up. Here is a look at the forest at the end of part 1 of this series, so I will continue the work on my forest tomorrow in part 2. That is all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.